Lena Hart had exactly 3 seconds to decide. Let the most dangerous man in New York die, or commit what everyone would call an assault on a mafia king. The poisoned champagne glass gleamed in Victor Romano's hand, rising toward his lips as 300 of the city's elite watched. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Her hands trembled. Then she did the unthinkable. She drew back her fist and punched the mafia boss square in the face. If you want to know how an invisible hotel maid became the woman who saved, and eventually loved, the man everyone feared, stay with me until the end. Don't forget to hit the like button and comment your city below so I can see how far Lena's story travels across the world. The fluorescent lights of the hotel's basement locker room buzzed like dying insects, casting sickly shadows across cracked tiles that had seen better decades. Lena Hart stood before a scratched mirror, smoothing down the starched white collar of her maid's uniform, with hands that had scrubbed too many toilets, changed too many sheets, and held too many secrets of the wealthy guests who never saw her face. She was 24 and invisible, not metaphorically invisible, though that was true enough. Lena had perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight, eyes down, movements efficient, presence forgettable. In the luxury hotels of Manhattan, invisibility was survival. The guests didn't want to see the help. They wanted their beds made, their champagne chilled, their messes cleaned without ever acknowledging the hands that did the work. But tonight was different. Tonight, Lena's invisibility might not be enough. Hart, the shrill voice of Mrs. D. Chen, the housekeeping supervisor, cut through the locker room chatter. You're being moved upstairs, gala service. Marissa called in sick. Lena's stomach dropped. Mrs. Chen, I've never worked the ballroom events. I don't know the protocols. You know how to carry a tray without dropping it, don't you? Mrs. Chen's weathered face showed no sympathy. She'd been working at the Grandeur Hotel for 30 years and had long ago exhausted her supply of patience. It's straightforward. Stay quiet, serve drinks, don't make eye contact with the guests. They're paying $25,000 a plate tonight, so don't screw it up. $25,000. Lena's mind reeled. That was more than she made in a year of 60-hour weeks. More than her mother's mounting medical bills. More than everything her family desperately needed but could never have. What's the event? Lena asked, though part of her didn't want to know. Mrs. Chen's expression flickered with something that might have been concern. Charity gala. Some foundation for orphan children. Very high profile, security everywhere. She lowered her voice. Victor Romano is the guest of honor. The name landed like a physical blow. Victor Romano. Even in the Bronx, even in the forgotten corners where Lena lived with her dying mother and mute younger brother, that name meant something. It meant power that operated beyond the law. It meant people disappeared when they crossed invisible lines. It meant money that flowed through the city's veins like poisoned blood, corrupting everything it touched. I can't, Lena heard herself say. Please, Mrs. Chen, give it to someone else. There is no one else. Mrs. Chen's voice hardened. Half the catering staff quit this week because of the security screening. The agency is sending replacements, but they won't arrive until 8. You start at 7. It's you or we're short-staffed. And if we're short-staffed, I get blamed. And if I get blamed, I start looking for people to fire. Her eyes narrowed. Are we understanding each other, Hart? Lena understood perfectly. Her job hung by a thread, and that thread was the only thing between her family and complete destitution. Her mother's cancer treatments cost $3,000 a week that insurance refused to cover. Her brother Daniel needed a special school that taught him to communicate despite his muteness, and that cost money they didn't have. The Bronx studio apartment they called home demanded rent that consumed most of Lena's paycheck. She couldn't afford to lose this job. She couldn't afford to say no. I understand, Lena whispered. Good. Mrs. Chen thrust a different uniform into Lena's hands, black and white, more formal, with the hotel's gold crest embroidered on the breast pocket. Report to the grand ballroom service entrance at 6:45. Don't be late. Lena changed in a toilet stall because the locker room offered no privacy. Her hands shook as she buttoned the black vest over the crisp white shirt. The uniform fit perfectly, which somehow made everything worse. It transformed her from invisible hotel maid into invisible gala servant, A different costume for the same role. Furniture with a pulse. She checked her phone before heading upstairs. 2 messages waited. The first was from Daniel, sent using the text-to-speech app that gave her mute brother a voice. Mama had bad day, breathing hard. I gave her medicine. When you come home? The second was from Dr. Reyes at Mercy Hospital. Lena, we need to discuss your mother's treatment options. The current protocol isn't working. Please call me Monday morning. Lena's throat tightened. Bad day. Not working. The words that haunted her dreams and followed her through every waking hour. Her mother was dying, had been dying for 2 years. But lately the dying had accelerated. The cancer that started in her lungs had spread to her bones, her liver, her brain. The doctors used careful words like aggressive and limited time, but Lena understood the truth. Her mother was slipping away, and there was nothing Lena could do except work herself to exhaustion and pray it was enough. She typed quickly. Home by midnight. I love you. Make sure Mama drinks water. Daniel's response came immediately. Okay. Love you too. Lena pocketed her phone and stared at her reflection one last time. Brown eyes too large for her thin face, dark hair pulled into a severe bun, skin pale from too many hours under fluorescent lights and not enough sunlight. She looked tired. She looked poor. She looked exactly like what she was, a girl from the Bronx who had no business being in the same room as Victor Romano. Stay invisible, she whispered to her reflection. Make no mistakes. Survive the night. Then she climbed the service stairs toward the world that could destroy her. Voti. The grand ballroom existed in a different reality than the basement locker room. Crystal chandeliers the size of compact cars dripped light across marble floors polished to mirror shine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park, where autumn had painted the trees in shades of gold and crimson. Round tables draped in silk seated 10 guests each, and every place setting included more silverware than Lena owned in total. The guests hadn't arrived yet, but the room already hummed with barely controlled chaos. Event coordinators barked orders into headsets. Florists made final adjustments to towering centerpieces of white roses and orchids. A string quartet tuned instruments on a stage flanked by enormous screens that would display whatever the charity wanted donors to see, probably images of sad children designed to open wealthy wallets. You must be the replacement. A woman in a severe black suit appeared at Lena's elbow. Her badge identified her as Sarah Mitchell, event manager, and her expression suggested she'd rather be anywhere else. Name? Lena Hart. Sarah consulted her tablet, lips pursed. You're assigned to Champagne Service, Section 3. That's tables 15 through 22. She pointed toward the right side of the ballroom. You'll work with Marcus, tall guy in the corner, and you'll serve only champagne. Nothing else. Clear? Yes, ma'am. The champagne is already poured and arranged on trays in the service corridor. Each glass has a small gold tag indicating which table it's meant for. Very important, do not mix up the glasses. Some guests have allergies, dietary restrictions, or preferences. The tags are numbered to match the seating chart. Understand? Yes, ma'am. Security is extremely tight tonight. Sarah's voice dropped. You'll notice men in dark suits stationed around the room. They're not hotel security. They're private security for Victor Romano. Do not approach them. Do not speak to them. If they speak to you, be polite and brief. If you see anything unusual, and I mean anything, you find me immediately. Not the hotel staff, me. Clear? Crystal clear. Sarah's expression softened slightly. Look, I know you're nervous. Everyone's nervous when Romano's involved, but the truth is he's just another guest. Treat him with respect, do your job, and you'll be fine. The dangerous part is over. Security already swept the room 3 times. Just stay professional and stay invisible. Stay invisible. Those words again. I can do that, Lena said, and meant it. The next hour passed in a blur of final preparations. Lena met Marcus, who proved to be a veteran server with 20 years of high-end catering experience and a gift for reading people. He walked her through the choreography of champagne service. How to hold the tray, how to approach guests from the left, how to read body language to know when someone wanted attention versus when they wanted to be ignored. These events are theater, Marcus explained, his deep voice calm and reassuring. We're stagehands. Our job is to make everything look effortless while staying completely invisible. Watch the experienced servers, follow their lead, and you'll do fine. At 7 o'clock, the guests began to arrive. Lena watched from the service corridor as New York's elite filled the ballroom. Designers who dressed celebrities, hedge fund managers who moved billions with phone calls, socialites whose family names appeared on museum wings and hospital buildings, real estate developers, media moguls, people whose definitions of problem and solution existed in different universes than Lena's reality. They wore gowns worth more than cars and jewelry that could pay off her mother's medical debt 10 times over. They laughed easily, the laughter of people who'd never worried about rent or medical bills or whether their younger brother had enough to eat. They belonged to this world of crystal chandeliers and $25,000 plates in a way Lena never would, never could. "Don't stare," Marcus murmured beside her. "It'll make you bitter." "I'm not staring." "Yes, you are. And I get it. I used to do the same thing when I started. But here's what I learned. Their lives aren't easier, just different. Rich people have rich people problems. They just solve them with money instead of elbow grease." Lena wasn't convinced, but she nodded anyway. At 7:30, the energy in the room shifted. Conversations quieted. Heads turned toward the main entrance. Even the musicians paused mid-note. Victor Romano had arrived. Lena's first thought was that he didn't look like a monster. He looked like money and power wrapped in an Italian suit that probably cost more than her annual salary. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair silvered at the temples and eyes that seemed to calculate the value of everything they touched. He moved through the crowd with the ease of someone who'd never doubted his right to occupy space, accompanied by security that radiated barely leashed violence. On his arm was a woman who belonged in magazines. Clara Whitmore. Lena recognized her from gossip sites that Daniel sometimes showed her. Old money, older than the hotels and probably older than some of the trees in Central Park. Blonde, beautiful, elegant, in an ice blue gown that matched her ice blue eyes. She smiled at Victor with perfect teeth, and he smiled back with what might have been affection or might have been habit. They made a striking couple. They also made Lena's skin crawl, though she couldn't explain why. "That's the happy couple," Marcus whispered. "Engaged 6 months ago. Wedding's supposed to be next spring at some estate in the Hamptons. Biggest society event of the decade, or so the gossip rags say." "She doesn't look happy," Lena observed. Marcus glanced at her sharply. "What makes you say that?" "Her smile doesn't reach her eyes, and she keeps looking around like she's searching for something." "Huh." Marcus studied Clara Whitmore with new interest. "You might be right, but that's none of our business. Come on, time to serve champagne." The next hour tested every lesson Marcus had taught her. Lena carried tray after tray of champagne glasses from the service corridor to the tables in Section 3, matching numbered tags to seated guests with careful precision. Most guests ignored her completely, exactly as predicted. A few offered brief thank yous that might have been automatic politeness or genuine gratitude, impossible to tell. One elderly woman with kind eyes asked her name, and Lena nearly dropped the tray in surprise before stammering a response. But mostly, she was invisible, moving between tables like a ghost, replenishing drinks, removing empty glasses, existing in the peripheral vision of people too important to notice the help. At 8:15, the program began. The charity's executive director took the stage and launched into a speech about orphan children that was clearly designed to extract maximum donations from minimum empathy. Images of sad children filled the enormous screens. Statistics about poverty and neglect scrolled past. A video played featuring a few photogenic orphans talking about their dreams. Lena watched from the service corridor and felt her jaw tighten. These people would write checks tonight, generous checks that would salve their consciences and earn them tax deductions. They would congratulate themselves on their charity while returning to homes worth millions. And the orphans would remain orphans, their suffering transformed into entertainment for the wealthy. "Cynical much?" Marcus's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Is it cynical if it's true?" "Fair point." He handed her a fresh tray. "Tables 18 and 19 need refills, and try to look pleasant. Your face is showing what you're thinking." Lena forced her expression neutral and carried the champagne toward table 18. As she approached, she noticed the guests deep in conversation, leaning close to hear each other over the executive director's speech. Absolutely convinced we can pull it off, a male voice was saying. Security's focused on external threats. They're not looking inside the circle. Lena's hand stilled on the tray. Something in the man's tone set off alarm bells. And you're certain about the timing? A female voice, elegant and cultured. If we miscalculate by even a minute, we won't. I've planned this down to the second. During the toast, when everyone's attention is on champagne, Lena interrupted, her server voice bright and empty. The two guests jerked apart like guilty teenagers. Lena kept her eyes down, maintained her pleasant expression, and began distributing champagne according to the numbered tags. Table 18, seats 1 through 10. She didn't look at the speakers, didn't acknowledge the abrupt silence. But peripheral vision was a gift, and Lena's had been honed by years of navigating spaces where she needed to be aware without appearing to watch. The male guest was Leon Mercer. She recognized him from earlier. He'd arrived with Victor Romano's group, some kind of advisor or associate. 40-something, handsome in a corporate way, wearing a Rolex that caught the light. The female guest was Clara Whitmore, Victor Romano's fiancée. They weren't sitting together. Leon was at table 18 with other business associates. Clara was supposed to be at table 1 with Victor. But here they were, heads together, speaking in urgent whispers about timing and security and things that made Lena's instincts scream danger. She finished distributing the champagne and moved to table 19, her mind racing. It was probably nothing, probably a business conversation, probably completely innocent, except Clara Whitmore's hand had been on Leon Mercer's wrist, except they'd been leaning so close their foreheads nearly touched, except the words during the toast kept echoing in Lena's head like a warning bell. Table 19's champagne service passed in a blur. Lena's hands moved automatically while her brain spun through possibilities. An affair? Certainly possible. Leon was handsome, Clara was beautiful, and powerful men's fiancés had been cheating since the invention of power. But the urgency in their voices suggested something more than romance, something dangerous. She returned to the service corridor and found Marcus checking his phone. "You okay?" he asked, glancing up. "You look pale." "I'm fine, just tired." "Well, perk up. Big moment coming. Romano's about to give his speech. Then there's the toast. We need to make sure everyone has fresh champagne for that." The toast. During the toast, when everyone's attention is on, Lena's stomach twisted. What happens during the toast? Same as every charity gala, the guest of honor stands, says something inspiring about generosity and community. Everyone raises their glasses and pretends to care. Standard stuff. Why? Just asking. Marcus gave her a curious look but didn't push. Tables 15 through 22 all need fresh champagne in the next 10 minutes. Let's move. They moved. Lena carried tray after tray, replacing nearly empty glasses with full ones, her mind barely connected to her actions. She watched Clara Whitmore return to table 1 and slip into the seat beside Victor Romano, her expression perfectly composed. She watched Leon Mercer accept a fresh champagne glass with a smile that made her skin crawl. And she watched the staff in the service corridor prepare a special tray. "What's that?" Lena asked one of the senior servers, a woman named Patricia. "VIP, champagne for the toast. Victor Romano's glass gets served separately, vintage Dom Perignon, his preference. Someone from his own security team will taste it first, then we serve it with a little ceremony, makes the donors feel like they're witnessing something exclusive." "Why does his security taste it?" Patricia lowered her voice. "Because Victor Romano has enemies, sweetie. Lots of them. The kind who'd slip poison in his drink if they got the chance. His head of security tastes everything first. Paranoid, maybe, but when you're that rich and that dangerous, paranoid keeps you breathing." Lena stared at the special tray. A single champagne glass sat in the center, the crystal catching the light. A small gold tag hung from the stem. Table 1. Seat 1. Victor Romano. "Who prepared that glass?" Lena heard herself ask. Leon Mercer brought it up himself about 20 minutes ago. Said it was Romano's personal stock, wanted to make sure it was handled properly. Why all the questions? Leon Mercer, Clara Whitmore's whisper partner, the man discussing timing and security, the man who'd personally delivered Victor Romano's champagne glass. "No reason," Lena managed. "Just curious." She returned to the ballroom floor, her heart hammering against her ribs. She was probably wrong, probably paranoid, probably seeing conspiracies where only coincidence existed. Leon Mercer worked for Victor Romano. Of course, he'd handle his boss's personal champagne. Clara Whitmore was engaged to Victor. Of course, they'd have private conversations at public events. But Lena had grown up in the Bronx, where survival meant trusting your instincts even when logic said you were crazy. And every instinct she possessed was screaming that something was wrong. On stage, the charity's executive director was wrapping up his speech. And now, to say a few words about the importance of giving back to our community's most vulnerable, please welcome our guest of honor and the Foundation's most generous supporter, Victor Romano. Applause erupted. Victor stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced ease, and climbed the stairs to the stage. The spotlight found him, and Lena understood in that moment why people feared this man. He commanded attention without effort, his presence filling the enormous ballroom like a physical force. "Thank you," Victor said into the microphone, his voice deep and controlled. "I'm not much for speeches, so I'll keep this brief." Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. "I grew up in Brooklyn," Victor continued. "Not the Brooklyn you see in trendy magazines. The Brooklyn where kids went to bed hungry and woke up to rats. My father was a dock worker. My mother cleaned houses. They taught me two things: family is everything, and the strong protect the weak. Not because it's profitable, because it's right." Lena found herself listening despite her suspicion. Victor Romano's public image was all violence and corruption, but his words carried genuine conviction. "These children," Victor gestured toward the screens showing orphaned faces. "They don't have family to protect them. They don't have strong advocates. They have each other and whoever we choose to be for them. Tonight, I'm choosing to be someone who gives them a chance. I hope you'll join me." More applause, louder this time. Victor smiled, and Lena saw something unexpected. Warmth. Real warmth, directed at images of children he'd never met but apparently cared about anyway. "Before we continue," Victor said, "I want to thank my beautiful fiancée Clara for her tireless work organizing this event. Clara, would you stand?" Clara Whitmore rose gracefully, accepting applause with a practiced smile. Lena watched her face and saw nothing. No warmth, no genuine emotion, just polished performance. "And my trusted advisor, Leon Mercer," Victor continued, "who keeps me honest and keeps my business running smoothly." "Leon?" Leon stood, acknowledging the applause with a modest nod. His expression was perfectly calibrated, humble, professional, loyal. Lena wanted to scream. "Now," Victor said, "I believe there's a tradition at these events. A toast to generosity, community, and the future we're building for these children. So please join me in raising your glasses." The ballroom stirred as 300 guests reached for champagne. Servers moved through the aisles with fresh trays. In the service corridor, Patricia lifted the special tray, holding Victor Romano's personal glass. "Marcus," she called. "You're up. Take this to Romano." "Why me?" "Because I said so. Move." Marcus took the tray, but Lena's hand shot out, gripping his wrist. "Wait. What's wrong?" Lena's mind raced. What could she say? I overheard two people having a private conversation, and now I think they're trying to kill the guest of honor? Can I deliver it? Marcus frowned. You've never done VIP service before. This isn't the time to learn. Please. Desperation bled into her voice. I need to do this. Lena, what's going on? She couldn't explain, couldn't justify the certainty that had lodged itself in her chest like a knife. But she could see Victor Romano on the stage, smiling at images of orphaned children while his fiancée and advisor plotted. What? Murder? It sounded insane even in her own head, but the words echoed. During the toast, when everyone's attention is on, Fine, Marcus said, shoving the tray at her. But if you screw this up, it's your job, not mine. Lena took the tray with trembling hands. The champagne glass gleamed under the chandelier light, the gold tag swaying gently. Table 1, seat 1. Victor Romano. She walked across the ballroom floor like someone moving through a nightmare. 300 guests watched Victor Romano on stage. Security personnel lined the walls, their attention focused outward, scanning for external threats. No one was looking at Lena, the invisible server carrying a glass of champagne. On stage, Victor was concluding his remarks. So here's to the future. Here's to hope. Here's to giving every child the family they deserve. He descended the stairs. The spotlight followed him. He reached table 1, where his champagne glass should be waiting. Lena approached from the left, exactly as trained. She could see the glass on her tray, could see the gold tag, could see... Wait. She stopped, stared at the tag. Table 1, seat 1. But there was something else. A tiny mark on the glass stem, so small she'd almost missed it. A red dot. Barely visible, like someone had touched it with a marker. Lena's eyes shot to the other glasses on nearby tables. None of them had red marks. She looked at Leon Mercer, sitting at table 18, watching Victor with an expression of mild interest. She looked at Clara Whitmore, sitting at table 1, her ice blue eyes fixed on her fiancé. And she knew. She didn't know how she knew, didn't know if she was right or catastrophically wrong. But every instinct honed by years of survival in places where mistakes meant death was screaming the same message, that glass would kill Victor Romano. He reached table 1, held out his hand expectantly. The head of security, a mountain of a man in a black suit, stepped forward first. I'll taste it. Always so paranoid, Dimitri, Victor said with affection. It's my job, boss. This was the moment. Lena could hand over the glass. The security guard would taste it first. If it was poisoned, he'd die instead of Victor. If it wasn't, Lena would look like a paranoid fool. But there wouldn't be time to save the guard. Poison worked fast. And Lena had spent her whole life invisible, unimportant, powerless. For once, she could do something that mattered. She made her choice. As Dimitri reached for the champagne glass, Lena pulled the tray back, drew her arm back, and with every ounce of strength in her thin frame, she punched Victor Romano in the face. The Mafia boss stumbled backward. The champagne glass flew from Lena's tray and shattered against the marble floor, spreading liquid that fizzed oddly and smelled faintly of almonds. Chaos erupted. Dimitri grabbed Lena, his hand clamping around her throat like a vice. She couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, could only watch as security descended, as guests screamed, as Victor Romano touched his split lip and stared at her with eyes that promised death. Who sent you? Dimitri roared, shaking her like a doll. Who? Lena tried to speak, but no air reached her lungs. Black spots danced in her vision. Wait. Victor's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Let her breathe. Dimitri's grip loosened slightly. Lena gasped, dragging air into her burning lungs. Victor approached, blood trickling from his lip, his expression unreadable. That was quite a punch. Who taught you? The champagne, Lena wheezed. Smell it. Victor's eyes narrowed. He looked at the shattered glass, the spreading liquid, then leaned down and inhaled. His expression changed instantly. Almonds, he said softly. Cyanide. The ballroom went silent. Victor straightened, his gaze sweeping across 300 frozen guests. When he spoke, his voice was calm, almost gentle. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption. Please remain in your seats. Security is going to lock down this room until we understand exactly what just happened. His security team moved with military precision, blocking exits and herding guests back to their tables. Victor's attention returned to Lena, still held in Dimitri's bruising grip. You saved my life, Victor said. Why? Because... Lena's throat ached. Because it was the right thing to do. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. For all you know, I deserve to die. Maybe. But not like that. Not poison. That's a coward's weapon. Something flickered in Victor's dark eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. What's your name? Lena Hart. Well, Lena Hart, you're either the bravest person I've ever met or the stupidest. Dimitri, take her somewhere secure but comfortable. I want to know everything she knows. Boss, do it. As Dimitri dragged her toward a service exit, Lena caught a glimpse of Leon Mercer's face. He looked shocked, angry, scared, and Clara Whitmore's ice blue eyes met hers across the ballroom. In them, Lena saw not gratitude, but cold, calculating fury. Then the door closed, and Lena was pulled into darkness, wondering if saving a mafia boss's life was the bravest thing she'd ever done, or the worst mistake. The service corridor twisted through the hotel's hidden infrastructure like a concrete artery, fluorescent lights stuttering overhead as Dmitri marched Lena deeper into places guests never saw. Her arm throbbed where his fingers gripped, tight enough to bruise, but not quite tight enough to break. Behind them, muffled chaos echoed from the ballroom. Shouts, commands, the distinctive click of weapons being checked. "Where are you taking me?" Lena's voice came out smaller than she intended. Dmitri didn't answer. His face could have been carved from granite, all hard angles and cold purpose. They descended a narrow staircase that led to the hotel's basement levels, past storage rooms and mechanical equipment, until they reached a door marked private, hotel staff only. He shoved it open with his free hand, revealing a windowless office that smelled of old coffee and cigarette smoke. Gray walls, gray carpet, a metal desk with a laptop and a phone. A single chair sat in the center of the room, bolted to the floor. "Sit," Dmitri ordered, releasing her arm. Lena sat. Her legs trembled, adrenaline finally catching up with what she'd done. She'd punched a mafia boss in front of 300 witnesses. She'd destroyed what was probably a $5,000 champagne glass. She'd caused a security incident that would haunt this hotel for years. And she'd saved a life. Maybe. If she was right about the poison, if she wasn't just a paranoid girl from the Bronx who'd destroyed her career and possibly her freedom based on overheard whispers and a tiny red dot on a glass stem. "Hands on the armrests," Dmitri said. Lena obeyed. He produced zip ties from his jacket pocket and secured her wrists to the chair with practiced efficiency. Not tight enough to cut off circulation, but definitely tight enough to prevent escape. "I'm not going to hurt you unless you make me," Dmitri said, his voice surprisingly calm. "Mr. Romano wants answers. You're going to give them to him. Understand?" "I understand." "Good." He moved to the desk, opened the laptop, and typed something. "He'll be down shortly. Until then, you sit quietly and think very carefully about what you're going to say." "The champagne really did smell like almonds, didn't it?" Lena asked. "I wasn't imagining that?" Dmitri's jaw tightened. "You weren't imagining it." "So I was right. Someone tried to poison him." "Someone tried. They failed because of you." His dark eyes studied her with unsettling intensity. "Why?" "I told you. It was the right thing to do." People don't risk their lives for strangers because it's the right thing to do. Not in this city. Not in this world. So I'll ask again. Why? Lena met his gaze. "My brother is mute, born that way. When he was little, other kids used to bully him, push him around because they knew he couldn't call for help. One day I saw 3 boys cornering him in an alley. They had sticks. They were going to hurt him just because they could." "What did you do?" "I jumped on the biggest one's back and bit his ear until he bled. Got suspended for a week. My mother was so angry she didn't speak to me for days." Lena's throat tightened with the memory. "But Daniel was safe. And I learned something. Sometimes the right thing and the smart thing aren't the same thing. Sometimes you just have to do what you can live with." Dmitri was silent for a long moment. "How old were you?" 9? "You bit a kid's ear when you were 9 to protect your brother." "Yes." "And tonight you punched a mafia boss to protect a stranger." "Yes." "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." Mr. Romano said the same thing. The corner of Dmitri's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "He's usually right about people." He checked his phone, then moved toward the door. "He's coming. Remember what I said? Answer his questions honestly, Mr. Romano values honesty above almost everything else. Lie to him, and..." He didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. The door closed behind him with a heavy click. Lena was alone. She tested the zip ties experimentally, but Dmitri knew his work. They held firm without cutting into her skin. The chair was bolted down. The room had no windows, no other exits, nothing she could use as a weapon even if her hands were free. She was trapped, and Victor Romano was coming. Lena forced herself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth, a technique Daniel's therapist had taught her for managing panic attacks. It helped, a little, enough to stop her hands from shaking. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The silence pressed against her ears like physical weight. When the door finally opened, Lena's whole body tensed. Victor Romano entered, and the room seemed to shrink. He'd removed his jacket and loosened his tie. A cut marked his lower lip where Lena's fist had connected, already starting to swell. Someone had given him ice wrapped in a bar towel, which he pressed against his mouth as he studied her. Behind him, Dmitri slipped in and took up position by the door. Silent, watchful, ready. "Lena Hart," Victor said, his voice carrying the faintest trace of amusement. "Hotel Maid from the Bronx, 24 years old, mother dying of cancer, brother with special needs, one speeding ticket from 3 years ago, no criminal record, no political affiliations, no connections to any of my enemies that we can find." He pulled out a second chair, not bolted down, and sat facing her. "In other words, you're nobody." "That's right," Lena said quietly. "I'm nobody." Nobody doesn't usually punch mafia bosses. Nobody usually doesn't notice when mafia bosses are about to be poisoned. Victor's eyes sharpened. "Tell me exactly what you noticed. Every detail. Leave nothing out." So Lena told him about overhearing Clara and Leon's whispered conversation, about the urgent tone that set off her instincts, about seeing Leon personally deliver the champagne glass, about the tiny red dot on the stem that marked it as different from every other glass in the ballroom. Victor listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You're saying my fiancé and my most trusted advisor are conspiring to kill me. I'm saying I heard 2 people discussing timing and security, and then one of them personally handled your champagne glass, and then that glass smelled like poison. Draw your own conclusions." "My conclusion is that you're either telling the truth or you're part of an extremely elaborate setup." Victor leaned forward, ice still pressed to his lip. "Which is it?" "Why would I be part of a setup that involves me punching you in the face in front of 300 witnesses?" "To establish credibility, to get close to me, to make me trust you." "And then what? Kill you myself?" "I'm zip-tied to a chair in a basement with your personal assassin blocking the door." "Not much of a plan." Victor's mouth twitched. "Dimitri's not an assassin. He's head of security." "What's the difference?" "Assassins kill for money. Dimitri kills for me." Dimitri's expression didn't change, but Lena saw the faintest hint of approval in his eyes. "Here's what I think happened," Victor said, setting down the ice and folding his hands. "I think you're exactly what you appear to be. A poor girl trying to survive in a city that eats people like you for breakfast. I think you overheard something that scared you. I think you made a split-second decision based on instinct. And I think you probably saved my life." Hope fluttered in Lena's chest. "Does that mean you believe me?" "It means I'm going to investigate. Dimitri, show her the surveillance footage." Dimitri pulled out a tablet and approached, holding it so Lena could see the screen. Security footage from the ballroom played in grainy black and white. She watched herself approach table 18 with the champagne tray, watched Clara and Leon jerk apart. The angle didn't capture their faces clearly, but their body language screamed intimacy. "That's Clara and Leon," Victor said, his voice flat. "Approximately 15 minutes before the toast. They weren't supposed to be talking. Clara was supposed to be at table 1 with me. Leon was supposed to be coordinating with security." The footage jumped to a different angle. Leon in the service corridor, speaking with someone off screen. He produced a champagne glass from inside his jacket. Where had he been hiding that? And handed it to a server with careful instructions. "That's Leon delivering what he claimed was my personal champagne," Victor said. "From my private collection." "Which is interesting because I didn't bring any personal champagne tonight." "So he lied," Lena said. "He lied. The question is why?" Victor took the tablet from Dimitri and swiped to another video. "This is from 2 weeks ago. Security footage from my office building." The screen showed Leon entering Victor's private office late at night, when the building should have been empty. He sat at Victor's desk, opened drawers, photographed documents with his phone. Corporate espionage, Lena guessed. Worse, those documents contained details about my legitimate business operations. shipping routes, supplier contracts, financial statements, information that could be used to disrupt my legal operations and cost me millions. But more importantly, Victor swiped again. This is from 6 months ago. The footage showed Leon meeting someone in a dark parking garage. Money changed hands, documents exchanged. The other person's face was obscured, but their build and movement suggested professional training. "Who is that?" Lena asked. "FBI," Victor said simply. "Leon Mercer has been feeding information to federal investigators for at least 6 months, possibly longer. My security team only discovered it last week." Lena's mind raced. "You knew he was a traitor before tonight?" "I suspected. I didn't have proof. I was watching him, gathering evidence, trying to understand the full scope of his betrayal." Victor's expression darkened. "What I didn't expect was murder. The FBI wants me in prison, not dead. Which means Leon has his own agenda." "Clara," Lena said. "It's about Clara." "Explain." "You said they weren't supposed to be talking. That means their relationship is secret. If Leon's betraying you to the FBI, that's business. But poison is personal. Poison is about replacing you." Victor stared at her for a long moment. "You're smarter than you look." "I'm smarter than people think," Lena corrected. "There's a difference." For the first time since entering the room, Victor smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his face from intimidating to almost handsome. "Yes, there is." He stood, pacing the small room with predatory grace. "Clara Whitmore comes from old money, very old. Her family helped build this city back when Manhattan was still farmland. But old money has a problem. It runs out. The Whitmores made bad investments, trusted the wrong people, spent too lavishly. Clara's family is broke. They hide it well, but they're one financial scandal away from losing everything." "So she's marrying you for your money," Lena said. "Our engagement was always a transaction. I wanted legitimacy, the kind that comes from marrying into New York aristocracy. She wanted financial security. We both understood the terms." Victor stopped pacing and met Lena's eyes. "What I didn't understand was that she wanted more than security. She wanted control. If you died before the wedding, she wouldn't inherit anything." "Exactly. But if we were married and I died, she'd inherit everything. My business, my assets, my connections. Under New York law, she'd become one of the wealthiest women in America." "But you're not married yet," Lena pointed out. "So why try to kill you now?" Victor was quiet for a moment. "Unless she planned to forge a marriage certificate, or claim we'd secretly married, or—" His eyes widened slightly. "The prenuptial agreement. I was supposed to sign it tomorrow. Once signed, certain assets would transfer to her name immediately as a gesture of good faith. If I died tonight before signing, those assets would be in legal limbo. She could fight for them, claim we had a verbal agreement. With Leon's help and her family's legal team, she might actually win." "But if the prenup was never signed, she has nothing," Lena finished. "Nothing except the sympathy of being a grieving fiancé and the chance to spin a story to her advantage." Victor resumed pacing. "It's actually brilliant. Kill me during a charity event in front of hundreds of witnesses, using poison delivered by someone else. If the security guard tasted it first and died, suspicion would fall on the hotel staff or one of my many enemies. Clara would be above suspicion. Why would she kill her fiancé before securing her financial future?" "Unless she already had a backup plan," Lena said quietly. Victor stopped. "What do you mean?" "Leon, if you died tonight, who would take over your business operations?" "My attorneys would manage the transition until my will was executed." "Who's in the will?" "My younger sister Sophia. She's 28, lives in Italy, has nothing to do with my business. She'd inherit everything." "Would she fight Clara for control?" Victor considered this. "Sophia hates confrontation. If Clara made a legal claim, Sophia would probably settle rather than face years of litigation. So Clara kills you, uses Leon to help her navigate the transition, settles with Sophia for half the estate, and walks away with hundreds of millions. Then she and Leon run off together to live happily ever after on your money. That's—" Victor trailed off, his expression shifting from anger to something like admiration. "That's exactly what they'd do." Dmitri cleared his throat. Boss, we've been scanning the security footage more carefully. Leon made 3 trips to the service corridor tonight. We have him on camera the first 2 times, but the third time he disappeared into a blind spot near the kitchen for 4 minutes. Time enough to poison the champagne, Victor said. And plant evidence, Dmitri added. If Lena hadn't intervened, you'd be dead, and we'd probably find traces of cyanide in the kitchen with her fingerprints on it. Lena's blood ran cold. They were going to frame me? Makes sense, Victor said grimly. Desperate hotel maid with a dying mother and crushing medical debt. Someone offers her money to slip poison into a glass. She takes it because she's desperate, simple, believable. The investigation would focus on who paid her, not on your fiancé and your most trusted advisor. I would have gone to prison, Lena whispered, or died resisting arrest. Either way, you'd be the scapegoat. Victor crouched in front of her chair, meeting her eyes at level. Instead, you threw yourself between me and death. You had every reason to let me die. I'm a criminal, I've hurt people, I represent everything you probably hate about this city. But you saved me anyway. Why? Because my mother taught me that life is precious, Lena said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. Even lives I don't understand, even lives I might not approve of. Nobody deserves to be murdered by people they trust. Victor studied her face for a long moment, and Lena saw something shift in his expression, calculation giving way to something that might have been respect. Dmitri, cut her loose, he said, standing. Boss, do it! Dmitri produced a knife and sliced through the zip ties. Lena rubbed her wrists, feeling blood flow return to her fingers. You're free to go, Victor said. Dmitri will escort you out through a private exit. You'll receive $100,000 as a thank you for saving my life. That should cover your mother's medical bills and your brother's education for a while. Lena stared at him. 100,000? Consider it a life-saving bonus. Dmitri, make sure she gets home safely. Post security outside her building for the next week. If Clara or Leon sent her, we'll know soon enough. If they didn't, she might need protection. Wait, Lena said, standing on shaky legs. What are you going to do? About Clara and Leon? Victor's smile turned cold. I'm going to give them exactly what they wanted, a funeral. You're going to kill them. I'm going to expose them. There's a difference. He moved toward the door, then paused. Actually, I have a better idea. Lena, how would you feel about helping me catch 2 murderers? What? Leon and Clara think you're zip-tied to a chair in a basement, probably being tortured for information. They think I suspect the hotel staff or one of my enemies. They don't know I've connected the dots to them yet. Victor's eyes gleamed with dark intelligence. What if we use that? Use it how? You go back to work. Act terrified, traumatized, but relieved to be alive. Spread the story that you saw someone tampering with the champagne, someone you can't identify, maybe someone from outside the hotel. Make it clear you're being watched by my security but haven't told us anything useful. He leaned against the doorframe. Leon and Clara will panic. They'll need to clean up loose ends, eliminate evidence, maybe even try to silence you. And when they do, we'll have them. You want to use me as bait, Lena said flatly. I want to give you a choice. Walk away with $100,000 and my gratitude, or stay and help me prove who tried to kill me. If you stay, I'll pay you $500,000 when this is over. And I'll make sure Clara and Leon face justice. Real justice, not just a bullet in the dark. $500,000. Enough to save her mother. Enough to give Daniel every opportunity he deserved. Enough to change their lives completely. All she had to do was risk everything. Dmitri made a sound that might have been a warning or a protest. Victor ignored him, his attention fixed on Lena. Why me? Lena asked. You have professional security. You have people who do this for a living. Because Clara and Leon will expect professional security. They won't expect you. And because... Victor hesitated, and for a moment the carefully controlled mask slipped, revealing something that might have been weariness. Because I've been surrounded by professionals my whole life. People who smile and lie and betray me for profit. You punched me in the face to save my life without knowing who I was or what I could do for you. That's not professional. That's real. Lena looked at Dmitri, who shook his head almost imperceptibly. a warning. Smart money said walk away, take the 100,000, go home to Daniel and her mother and never look back. But Lena had never been good at taking smart money. If I do this, she said slowly, I need protection for my family. My mother and brother can't be collateral damage. Done. I'll have them moved to a secure location tonight. Medical staff, comfortable accommodations, everything they need. And when this is over, when Clara and Leon are caught, I want your promise that you'll leave me and my family alone. No favors owed. No debts. We walk away clean. Victor smiled. You drive a hard bargain for someone who was making minimum wage 4 hours ago. 4 hours ago, I hadn't punched a Mafia boss. Times change. They certainly do. Victor extended his hand. We have a deal, Lena Hart. Lena looked at his hand, strong, scarred, belonging to a man who'd built an empire on violence and fear. Then she looked at his eyes and saw not a monster but a man who'd just survived betrayal by the people he trusted most. She shook his hand. We have a deal. Good. Dimitri, get her cleaned up and back to the ballroom. Make it look like she's been questioned but released. Scared but cooperative. Can you do that? Of course, boss. Lena, one more thing. Victor's voice stopped her at the door. When this is over, win or lose, you'll have enemies. People like Clara and Leon, don't forget. Are you prepared for that? Mr. Romano, Lena said quietly, I've been poor my whole life. I know what it's like to have enemies. At least this time I'll have the money to fight back. Victor laughed, a genuine sound that echoed in the small room. I like you, Lena Hart. Try not to die on me. I'll do my best. Dimitri led her out, and as the door closed behind them, Lena realized she'd just agreed to something that would either save her family or destroy them completely. There was no middle ground anymore, no invisibility to hide behind, no safe path home. She'd punched a Mafia boss and lived to tell the tale. Now she just had to survive what came next. Dimitri worked with the efficiency of someone who'd cleaned up far worse messes than a frightened hotel maid. In a bathroom 2 floors above the interrogation room, he handed Lena a cold washcloth and pointed to the mirror. You need to look shaken but composed, he instructed, his deep voice surprisingly gentle. Cry a little if you can manage it. Smudge your makeup. But keep your story straight. You saw someone tampering with the champagne. You panicked. You acted on instinct. You don't know who it was. You can't identify them. Understand? Lena pressed the washcloth to her face, letting the cold water shock some clarity into her spinning thoughts. In the mirror, she looked exactly like what she was supposed to be, terrified. Her eyes were too wide, her skin too pale, her hands trembling as she tried to fix her hair. What if they ask specific questions, she said. What if they trip me up? They won't. Clara and Leon will be too busy covering their own tracks to interrogate you thoroughly. Just stick to confused and traumatized. It's not far from the truth anyway. He was right about that. Lena's whole body still buzzed with adrenaline, her mind replaying the moment Victor's glass had shattered, the smell of almonds, the chaos that followed. She'd crossed a line tonight that couldn't be uncrossed. My family, she said suddenly. You promised they'd be safe. Dimitri checked his phone. Already handled. Mr. Romano doesn't make empty promises. Your mother and brother are being transported to a private medical facility in Westchester as we speak. Full nursing staff, top-tier equipment, security at every entrance. Your brother will think it's a vacation. Your mother will receive better care than most hospitals can provide. How did you move them so fast? We didn't just start planning when you shook Mr. Romano's hand. He made the call while you were still zip-tied to the chair. He knew you'd say yes. Lena met Dimitri's eyes in the mirror. How did he know? Because he's good at reading people. It's how he stayed alive this long. Dimitri opened the bathroom door and checked the hallway. Time to go. Remember, scared, confused, cooperative. You're nobody special, just a maid who got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. They took a service elevator back to the main floor. As they rose, Lena tried to settle her racing heart. She was about to walk back into the ballroom where she'd assaulted Victor Romano in front of New York's elite, where Clara Whitmore and Leon Mercer were probably scrambling to understand what had gone wrong, where 300 witnesses had watched her commit what should have been career suicide. The elevator doors opened. The hallway beyond buzzed with controlled chaos, security personnel, hotel management, A few police officers taking statements. Lena's stomach dropped when she saw the uniforms, but Dimitri's hand on her elbow steadied her. The NYPD is here as a formality, he murmured. Mr. Romano owns half the precinct. They'll file a report about a disruption at a charity event and move on. Just nod and look overwhelmed. He guided her through the crowd toward the ballroom entrance. People stared, some with curiosity, some with suspicion, some with the kind of morbid fascination reserved for car accidents and public meltdowns. Lena kept her eyes down, playing her part. The ballroom looked different now. The elegant atmosphere had shattered along with the champagne glass. Guests clustered in small groups, speaking in urgent whispers. Security personnel stood at every exit. The shattered glass had been cleaned up, but yellow evidence markers dotted the floor where it had fallen. And at table 1, Victor Romano sat with Clara Whitmore, deep in conversation. Lena's breath caught. From this distance, they looked like the perfect couple. Victor, leaning close, Clara's hand on his arm, both their faces masks of concern. But Lena could see the tension in Clara's shoulders, the too bright quality of her smile. She was performing, and performing hard. Ms. Hart, a police officer approached, his notepad already out. I'm Detective Morrison. I need to ask you a few questions about what happened tonight. Lena forced herself to meet his eyes. He was older, maybe 50, with the kind of face that had seen too much and believed too little, but his expression held only professional interest, not suspicion. I already told them everything, Lena said, letting her voice shake. I saw someone near the champagne. They looked wrong. I panicked. I didn't mean to hurt Mr. Romano. I thought something was wrong with the glass. And you couldn't identify this person you saw? No, everything happened so fast. It was just a feeling, an instinct. She wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture of vulnerability that wasn't entirely faked. I've never done anything like that before. I don't know what I was thinking. Detective Morrison studied her for a long moment, then wrote something in his notepad. Mr. Romano has declined to press charges, says you were trying to help, even if your methods were unorthodox. You're a very lucky young woman. I know, Lena whispered. You're free to go. We'll contact you if we need additional information. He handed her a business card. If you remember anything else about this person you saw, give me a call. Thank you, Detective. He moved on to interview another witness, leaving Lena standing near the entrance with Dimitri at her side. She risked a glance toward table 1 and found Clara Whitmore staring directly at her. Their eyes met across the ballroom. Clara's expression was perfectly composed, concerned, sympathetic, the face of a woman grateful that her fiancé had been saved from potential harm. But her ice-blue eyes told a different story. They were calculating, measuring, trying to determine how much Lena knew and how much of a threat she posed. Lena looked away first, letting fear show in her body language. Just a scared girl in over her head. Nobody important, nobody dangerous. Ms. Hart? Leon Mercer appeared at her elbow so suddenly that Lena flinched. Up close, he was even more handsome than she'd thought. Square jaw, perfect teeth, expensive cologne masking the smell of whatever darkness lived beneath his polished surface. I wanted to thank you personally for your quick thinking tonight. Mr. Romano is very grateful. I was just doing what felt right, Lena managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Still, it took tremendous courage. His smile was warm, his hand gentle on her shoulder, and Lena had to fight the urge to recoil. This man had tried to murder his boss, had planned to frame her for it, was probably trying right now to assess whether she was a loose end that needed tying up. I hope this incident hasn't traumatized you too badly. I'll be okay. I just want to go home. Of course, of course. Leon's eyes searched her face, looking for cracks in her performance. Did you happen to notice anything else unusual tonight? Anyone suspicious near the service area? There it was, the fishing expedition, disguised as concerned inquiry. I don't know, Lena said, letting confusion bleed into her voice. Everything's a blur. The detectives asked me the same thing, but I can't remember clearly. It all happened so fast. But you did see someone tampering with the champagne. I thought I did. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I just panicked for no reason. She looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. I could have hurt Mr. Romano badly. What if I made a mistake? Leon's smile softened with what might have been genuine relief. You didn't make a mistake. The laboratory is testing the champagne now. If there was poison, you saved Mr. Romano's life. If there wasn't, well, better safe than sorry. His hand squeezed her shoulder. Try to get some rest. I'm sure this has been overwhelming. Thank you, Mr. Mercer. He moved away, and Lena felt Dimitri's presence at her back like a wall of barely contained violence. He bought it, Dimitri murmured, so quietly only she could hear. But he'll be watching you. They both will. What do I do now? Now you go back to work. Act normal. Be the invisible maid again. We'll handle the rest. Mrs. Chen is going to kill me for causing a scene. Mrs. Chen is currently being interviewed by hotel management about security protocols. By the time she's free, mister, Romano will have made a very generous donation to the hotel and specifically requested that you keep your job. You'll be untouchable. Lena wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. Untouchable. Her, the girl who'd spent her whole life being invisible and disposable. Instead, she just nodded and made her way toward the service corridor, very aware of the eyes tracking her movement. The other hotel staff stared as she passed. Some looked impressed. Some looked horrified. Marcus caught her eye and mouthed, "What the hell?" But Lena could only shake her head, unable to explain anything that would make sense. In the service corridor, Mrs. Chen was waiting. Hart! The supervisor's voice could have frozen water. My office. Now. Lena followed, her heart sinking. The tiny office off the main corridor was exactly as she remembered, cramped, cluttered, smelling of stale coffee and old paperwork. Mrs. Chen shut the door and turned to face her, arms crossed. Do you have any idea what you've done? The words came out like bullets. You assaulted a guest. You caused a security incident. You made this hotel look incompetent in front of the city's most important people. I should fire you on the spot. I know. I'm sorry. I don't care what you thought. Mrs. Chen's expression was stone. What I care about is that Victor Romano just personally called the hotel manager and told him that if you're terminated, he'll pull all his business from this hotel and encourage his associates to do the same. Do you understand what that means? Lena's mouth went dry. No, ma'am. It means you're unfireable. It means I can't touch you no matter how badly you screw up. It means you have protection from one of the most dangerous men in New York City. Mrs. Chen leaned against her desk, and for the first time, Lena saw something other than anger in her face. Fear. Hart, what have you gotten yourself into? I don't know, Lena said honestly. I really don't know. Mrs. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed, and some of the tension left her shoulders. Listen to me carefully. I've worked in luxury hotels for 30 years. I've seen girls like you get involved with men like Romano before. It never ends well. Whatever he's offering you, money, protection, opportunity, it comes with a price. These people don't do favors, they make investments, and they expect returns. I'm not involved with him. I saw something wrong and I acted, that's all. That's all, Mrs. Chen repeated, her voice heavy with skepticism. Fine, keep your secrets. But hear this, you're still expected to do your job. You'll finish your shift tonight. Tomorrow, you'll report for your regular assignment. And if you bring any more drama into my hotel, protection or no protection, I'll make your life miserable in ways that don't technically count as firing. Clear? Crystal clear. Good. Get back to work. Lena returned to the ballroom floor, where the gala was slowly limping back to normal. Guests had returned to their tables. The charity director was attempting damage control, encouraging donations despite the disruption. Waiters circulated with fresh champagne, though Lena noticed many guests declining, eyeing their glasses with newfound suspicion. She retrieved a tray and fell back into the familiar rhythm of service. Table to table, drink to drink, smile and nod and disappear. But invisibility felt different now. Every time she moved through the room, she felt Clara's eyes tracking her. Every time she passed table 18, Leon's gaze followed. They were hunting her without seeming to hunt, measuring her, calculating her threat level, trying to determine if the scared little maid knew more than she was saying. Lena kept her expression blank, her movements mechanical. Just another server. Just another piece of furniture. Nothing to worry about. At 9:30, Victor took the stage again. His lip had swollen where Lena's punch had landed, but he wore it like a badge of honor. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into the microphone, his voice cutting through the nervous chatter, "I want to address what happened tonight. There was a security concern. It was handled. Thanks to the quick thinking of one of the hotel's staff members, no one was harmed." Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Lena kept her head down, staring at her empty tray. "I also want to remind everyone why we're here," Victor continued. "We're here for children who have no one to protect them, children who've been abandoned, abused, forgotten. Tonight's disruption doesn't change their need. It doesn't change our responsibility. So I'm going to make this simple. I'm donating $5 million to the foundation, and I'm challenging everyone in this room to match my contribution according to your means." The ballroom erupted in applause. Lena watched as guests pulled out phones, signaling to assistants, making pledges. The numbers flowing across the charity's donation board climbed rapidly. 10 million, 15 million, 20 million. Victor had turned a near assassination into a fundraising triumph. "He's good," Marcus murmured, appearing at Lena's elbow with his own tray. "I'll give him that. The man knows how to work a room." "Yeah," Lena said quietly. "He does." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Guests began departing around 10, offering effusive thanks to the charity organizers and carefully avoiding eye contact with the servers. By 11, the ballroom was nearly empty, except for staff breaking down tables and security personnel conducting final sweeps. Lena was hauling a bin of dirty dishes toward the service elevator when someone grabbed her arm and yanked her into an empty conference room. She bit back a scream and spun to find Clara Whitmore closing the door behind them. Up close, Victor's fiancée was even more beautiful and even more terrifying. Her ice blue gown matched her ice blue eyes, and both were fixed on Lena with laser focus. "We need to talk," Clara said, her cultured voice carrying an edge sharp enough to cut. Lena's heart hammered. She was alone with a woman who'd tried to murder her fiancé and would have happily framed Lena for it. Every instinct screamed to run, but she forced herself to stay still, to play her role. I'm working, Ms. Whitmore. I should get back." "You'll get back when I say you can get back." Clara stepped closer, and Lena caught the scent of expensive perfume mixed with something that might have been desperation. "Tell me exactly what you saw tonight." "I already told the police." "I don't care what you told the police. I want to hear it from you, every detail. What did you see?" Lena let fear show in her face, easy enough since she was genuinely terrified. "I saw someone near the champagne service area. They looked wrong, like they didn't belong, so I panicked. And I don't know what I was thinking. I just reacted." "What did this person look like?" "I don't know. I didn't get a good look. It was crowded and the lighting was dim in the corridor. I just had a bad feeling." Clara's eyes narrowed. "A bad feeling. You assaulted one of the most powerful men in New York because of a bad feeling." "I know it sounds crazy. It sounds like a lie." Clara's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow felt more dangerous than shouting. "Or it sounds like you're protecting someone." "Which is it, Lena?" The use of her first name sent ice down Lena's spine. Clara had done her homework. "I'm not protecting anyone. I'm just a maid. I don't know anything about your world or Mr. Romano's business or any of this. I just wanted to help." "Help?" Clara's laugh was cold and brittle. "How noble! And now Victor's taken you under his protection. How convenient." "I don't want his protection. I don't want anything except to keep my job and take care of my family." "Your family?" Clara pulled out her phone, swiped a few times, then turned the screen toward Lena. The image showed Daniel sitting in a wheelchair in what looked like a hospital room, Lena's mother in the bed beside him. Both were smiling. Both looked comfortable and safe. "Your brother Daniel, age 15. Your mother, Maria Hart, stage 4 cancer, both currently enjoying Victor Romano's hospitality at a very expensive medical facility." The threat was clear. Clara knew where they were, could reach them if she wanted. Lena's hands clenched into fists. "Don't you dare." "Dare what?" Clara's smile was all teeth. "I'm simply observing that Victor's generosity comes with strings. He's bought your loyalty with your family's safety. Smart move, really. I'd expect nothing less." "What do you want from me?" "I want you to understand something very clearly." Clara stepped even closer, close enough that Lena could see the calculation in her eyes. Victor Romano is a dangerous man. He hurts people. He destroys lives. Whatever he's promised you, whatever fantasy you're entertaining, it will end badly. The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to take whatever money he's offered and disappear. Is that a threat? It's advice. From someone who knows him much better than you do. Claire's expression softened into something that might have been genuine concern if Lena didn't know better. I'm going to marry Victor in 6 months. I'll be his wife, his partner, the mother of his children. You're a hotel maid who happened to be in the right place at the right time. Do you really think he cares about you? Do you really think you matter in his world? The words hit exactly where Clara intended, at Lena's deepest insecurities, her knowledge that she was nobody, invisible, disposable. But Lena had spent her whole life being underestimated. She knew how to use it. You're right, she said, letting her voice break. I don't matter. I'm nobody. I just want to go home and forget this night ever happened. Clara studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Good. That's very wise. She moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. If anyone asks you about tonight, police, reporters, anyone, you say it was a misunderstanding. You thought you saw something suspicious, but you were mistaken. The champagne was perfectly fine. You overreacted. Understand? Why would I say that? Because the alternative is that someone tried to poison Victor at a charity event in front of 300 witnesses. That kind of scandal would destroy the foundation's reputation, hurt the children we're trying to help, and turn this night into a media circus. You don't want that. I don't want that. Nobody wants that. Claire's smile was pure ice. So we're going to agree that it was a misunderstanding. A nervous maid with good intentions but poor judgment. Nothing more. She was trying to bury the story, to make the poison attempt disappear into the background noise of a disrupted event. If Lena agreed, if she played along, Clara and Leon could regroup and try again later. Okay, Lena said quietly. It was a misunderstanding. Smart girl. Clara opened the door. Now go back to work. And Lena, if you're as smart as I think you are, you'll forget you ever met Victor Romano. She swept out, leaving Lena alone in the empty conference room with her racing heart and the knowledge that she'd just been threatened by a woman who smiled like poison tasted sweet. Dmitri materialized in the doorway as if summoned by Lena's fear. You okay? He asked. She knows. About my family. About the facility. Of course she knows. She's not stupid. Dmitri's expression was grim. What did you tell her? That I was nobody. That I wanted to forget this ever happened. That it was all a misunderstanding. Good. That's exactly what she needed to hear. He checked the hallway, then gestured for Lena to follow. Your shift ends in 20 minutes. I'll drive you home. Home? What about my family? They're safe. Clara might know where they are, but she won't move against them yet. Too obvious, too risky. She'll watch them, use them as leverage, but she won't hurt them unless she has no other choice. And if she has no other choice? Dmitri's smile was sharp and dangerous. Then she'll discover that Mr. Romano protects his investments very, very thoroughly. They walked through the mostly empty ballroom toward the service exit. The last few guests were departing. The cleanup crew was already at work. And somewhere in the building, Clara Whitmore and Leon Mercer were probably planning their next move. Lena had stepped into a war she barely understood, had made herself a target, had risked everything on the hope that Victor Romano would keep his word. But as she glanced back at the ballroom one last time, she saw Victor standing near the windows, talking on his phone. He looked up, met her eyes across the distance, and nodded once, a silent acknowledgement. A promise kept. Lena nodded back and followed Dmitri into the night, wondering if she'd just made the best decision of her life or signed her own death warrant. Either way, there was no going back now. Dmitri's car was a black SUV with tinted windows and the kind of engine that purred like a predator. Lena climbed into the passenger seat, her body finally registering the exhaustion that adrenaline had kept at bay for the past 5 hours. Every muscle ached, her feet throbbed from hours in cheap shoes on marble floors. Her right hand was swollen where she'd connected with Victor's jaw. Buckle up, Dmitri said, pulling into late-night Manhattan traffic. Lena obeyed, watching the city blur past through bulletproof glass. Even at midnight, New York never slept. Taxis prowled for fares, Delivery trucks rumbled toward early morning destinations, and people moved through pools of streetlight like ghosts of the lives they were trying to build. "Where are we really going?" she asked. "Because I know you're not just taking me home." Dimitri's mouth twitched with something that might have been approval. "You're learning. No, we're making a stop first, mister. Romano wants to brief you before you go back to your normal life. Can't do that at your apartment. Too exposed. Can't do it at his office. Too obvious. So we're meeting somewhere neutral. Let me guess. Somewhere with multiple exits and clear sightlines. Now you're thinking like security." He took a turn onto a side street, then another, navigating the city with the ease of someone who knew every alley and shortcut. "How are you holding up? And don't say fine. I've seen fine and you're not it." Lena let out a breath that felt like she'd been holding it for hours. "I'm terrified. Clara Whitmore just threatened my family. Leon Mercer is probably planning how to eliminate me. And I agreed to help catch 2 people who've already proven they're willing to murder. So no, I'm not fine. I'm the opposite of fine." "Good." "Good?" "Fear keeps you sharp, keeps you careful. The people who die in this business are the ones who stop being afraid." Dimitri glanced at her. "But there's a difference between healthy fear and paralyzing terror. You need to find the line between them." "And if I can't?" "Then you tell me, and we pull you out. No shame in that. This isn't your world, Lena. You don't owe Victor Romano your life." "I owe him for my mother's medical care, for Daniel's safety." "You saved his life. That debt's already paid. Anything else is negotiation, not obligation." The SUV turned down a ramp into an underground parking garage. Remember that. No matter what Victor says or offers, you always have a choice. The parking garage belonged to a luxury apartment building in Tribeca. Dimitri parked in a reserved spot marked private and led Lena to a service elevator that required a key card to operate. They rode up in silence, and Lena tried not to think about what would happen if this was a trap, if Dimitri was leading her somewhere she couldn't escape, if Victor's promises were just another kind of poison. The elevator opened onto a penthouse apartment that took Lena's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson River and the lights of Jersey City beyond. Hardwood floors gleamed under recessed lighting. Modern furniture in shades of gray and black created spaces that felt both expensive and oddly impersonal, like a hotel suite designed to impress rather than comfort. Victor stood by the windows, still in his suit from the gala, but with his tie loosened and his jacket discarded. He held a glass of amber liquid, whiskey probably, and stared out at the city like a king surveying his kingdom. "Ms. Hart," he said without turning around. "Thank you for coming." "Did I have a choice?" "Always." He turned, and Lena saw that his lip had swollen more, a purple bruise blooming along his jaw, the marks of her punch. "You could have told Dimitri to take you home. You could have refused to help. You still can. But I'm hoping you won't." "Why? You already said the debt was paid." Victor smiled and gestured to a leather sofa. "Sit, please. We have much to discuss, and you look ready to collapse." Lena sat, and the sofa enveloped her like an embrace. Dimitri took up position by the elevator, alert and watchful. Victor settled into an armchair across from her, his whiskey glass catching the light. "I need to show you something," Victor said, pulling out a tablet from the side table. The laboratory fast-tracked the analysis of the champagne. "Dimitri, dim the lights." The room darkened, and the tablet's screen glowed bright as Victor swiped through documents. Potassium cyanide, approximately 50 milligrams dissolved in the champagne, more than enough to kill within minutes. Death would have looked like a heart attack initially. Chest pain, difficulty breathing, confusion. By the time the medical examiner identified poisoning, Clara and Leon would have had hours to establish alibis and destroy evidence. He turned the tablet toward Lena. The toxicology report was dense with scientific terminology, but the conclusion was clear. Victor Romano had been seconds away from death. "So I was right," Lena whispered. "You were right. Which means Clara and Leon are guilty of attempted murder. The question is how to prove it in a way that brings them to justice without starting a war." Victor set down the tablet and leaned forward. "I could kill them tonight, make it look like accidents, Leon's car goes off a bridge. Clara overdoses on sleeping pills. Neat, clean, problem solved. But you won't. No, I won't. Because you asked for real justice, and because— He paused, choosing his words carefully. Because I'm tired of solving problems with violence. It's effective, yes, but it's also endless. Every death creates new enemies, new cycles of revenge. I want better than that. Lena studied his face, looking for the lie, the manipulation, but she saw only weariness and something that might have been genuine conviction. What's the alternative? She asked. We make them confess, on camera, with evidence, in a way that can't be disputed or explained away. Then we turn everything over to the authorities, the real authorities, not the ones I own. Let the legal system handle them. The legal system that lets people like you operate openly? Victor's smile was rueful. Touché. But Clara and Leon aren't like me. I built my empire through strategy and force. They're trying to build theirs through betrayal and poison. The authorities will be much less forgiving of amateurs. How do we make them confess? We give them what they want. Or rather, we make them think they're getting what they want. Victor stood and walked to a desk in the corner, returning with a folder thick with documents. Leon has been selling information to the FBI for months, but what he really wants is my network, my contacts, my accounts, my entire operation. He thinks if I die, he can step into my shoes with Clara's money backing him. So we offer him your network. Exactly. We stage my death. Make it look like the poison worked, just delayed. Clara and Leon will rush to secure their position, which means accessing my accounts, contacting my associates, consolidating power. Every step they take will be recorded, documented, traced. When they think they've won, we spring the trap. Lena's mind raced through the implications. That's incredibly dangerous. If they even suspect you're alive, they'll disappear. And if your actual enemies think you're dead, they'll move against my organization, yes, which is why we'll need to move fast. 72 hours, start to finish. 3 days to let Clara and Leon hang themselves with their own ambition. Victor's eyes locked on hers. And I need you to sell it. You're the key witness. You saw me die. You were there when the poison finally took effect. Your testimony makes it real. You want me to lie to the police. I want you to play a role. There's a difference. Not much of one. Victor was quiet for a moment. You're right. I'm asking you to compromise your principles for my plan. That's not fair. If you want to walk away, I'll understand. The 100,000 is yours regardless. Your family will remain under protection. You owe me nothing. Lena thought about her mother, slowly dying in a hospital bed. About Daniel, who'd spent his whole life unable to speak, unable to defend himself, unable to ask for help. About all the people like them, invisible, voiceless, powerless, who got crushed between the gears of the powerful. Clara and Leon were trying to murder their way into wealth and influence. They'd framed an innocent maid without a second thought. They'd poison a man at a charity event for orphaned children and sleep soundly afterward. I'll do it, Lena said, but I have conditions. Name them. First, when this is over, you donate $10 million to children's charities. Real charities, not money laundering operations. Organizations that actually help kids. Done. Next. Second, you get my mother into the best cancer treatment program in the country. I don't care what it costs. If there's even a chance of saving her, I want it. Something shifted in Victor's expression. Surprise, maybe, or respect. I have contacts at Memorial Sloan Kettering. They run experimental trials that aren't available to the general public. I'll make a call. What else? Third, when Clara and Leon are arrested, I want to be there. I want to see their faces when they realize they lost. Victor smiled, sharp and dangerous. That can be arranged. Anything else? Lena hesitated, then pushed forward. Why are you really doing this? The legal route instead of just killing them. The charity donations, helping my family. You're a criminal, Mr. Romano. Everyone knows it. So why pretend to be something you're not? The question hung in the air between them. Dmitri shifted by the elevator, tension radiating from his posture. But Victor just took a long drink of his whiskey and stared out at the city lights. My father was murdered when I was 16, he said finally. shot in the back by someone he trusted. His own cousin, as it turned out, wanted to take over the family business. I found my father bleeding out in our kitchen, and you know what his last words were? Lena shook her head. Don't be like me. That's what he said. Don't be like me. Victor's voice was distant, lost in memory. I built this empire anyway. Became exactly what he didn't want. Hurt people, destroyed lives, made money through violence and fear. And for what? So I could have expensive suits and penthouses and enemies who want me dead? He turned to face her. I can't undo what I've done. Can't bring back the people I've hurt. But maybe I can do this one thing right. Maybe I can make sure Clara and Leon face real consequences instead of just disappearing into shallow graves. Maybe that counts for something? Or maybe, Lena said quietly, you're just tired of being alone. Victor froze, his glass halfway to his lips. For a moment, the carefully controlled mask slipped, revealing something raw and aching underneath. Maybe, he admitted. Clara was supposed to be a transaction, but some part of me hoped. He shook his head. Doesn't matter. She chose poison. Now she faces the consequences. When do we start? Lena asked. Tomorrow. We'll stage my death tomorrow night. But tonight, you need rest. Dmitri will take you home. Real home this time. Victor pulled out his phone and typed something. I'm sending you a number. Memorize it, then delete it. If anything goes wrong, anything at all, you call that number. Someone will answer within 60 seconds, and they'll extract you from whatever situation you're in. Extract me? Get you out. Get you safe. No questions asked. He met her eyes. I meant what I said earlier, Lena. You always have a choice. If this becomes too dangerous, if you want out, you call that number. Lena's phone buzzed. She looked at the number, committed it to memory, then deleted the message. Okay. Get some sleep. Tomorrow, everything changes. Dmitri drove her back to the Bronx in silence. The streets grew narrower, the buildings shorter, the polish of Manhattan giving way to the worn reality of working-class neighborhoods. When they pulled up outside Lena's apartment building, a 6-story walk-up with cracked sidewalks and iron bars on the ground floor windows, the contrast was jarring. We'll have someone watching the building, Dmitri said. You won't see them, but they're there. Anyone approaches you, anyone threatens you, you scream. They'll respond. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just stay alive. He handed her a business card. My direct number. Call if you need anything. Lena climbed out of the SUV and watched it drive away, then trudged up 4 flights of stairs to her apartment. The hallway smelled like cooking grease and old carpet. Someone's television blared through thin walls. A baby cried 3 doors down. Home. She unlocked the apartment, 2 deadbolts and a chain, and stepped into the tiny studio that had been her whole world until tonight. One room serving as bedroom, living room, and kitchen. A bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. Furniture from thrift stores and sidewalk discards. Pictures of Daniel and her mother taped to walls that desperately needed painting. It was small and shabby and precious because it was hers. Because she'd fought for every day she could keep it, because it held everything that mattered. Her phone rang. Daniel, calling from the facility. Hey, buddy, Lena answered, her voice cracking with exhaustion. Daniel's text-to-speech app spoke for him. Where are you? They say you're working. Mama is scared. I'm home now. I'm sorry I couldn't come with you to the new place. Is it nice? Very nice. Big room. Good bed. Nurses are kind, but Mama cries. She thinks something is wrong. Lena closed her eyes. Can you put her on? Rustling sounds, then her mother's weak voice. Lena, what's happening? Why are we here? Mama, everything's fine. It's a special treatment program. The doctors want to try new therapies for your cancer. Isn't that good news? But the cost. Don't worry about the cost. It's covered. Just focus on getting better, okay? Focus on resting and letting them help you. Her mother was quiet for a long moment. You're in trouble. I'm not in trouble. Don't lie to me, mija. I know that voice. You're scared. Lena's throat tightened. Her mother had always been able to read her, even across phone lines, even through carefully constructed lies. I'm handling it, Mama. I promise. Just trust me. I always trust you. But Lena, be careful. Whatever you're doing, whatever you've gotten into, be careful. I will. I love you. I love you too, baby. So much. The call ended, leaving Lena alone in her silent apartment with the weight of everything pressing down on her shoulders. She was about to help stage a mafia boss's death, about to become bait in a trap for two murderers, about to risk everything on the hope that Victor Romano was telling the truth. She should have been terrified, should have been calling that extraction number and running as far as her savings would take her. Instead, she felt strangely calm, because for the first time in her life, she wasn't invisible, wasn't powerless, wasn't just surviving, she was fighting back. Lena set her phone on the counter and noticed a text from an unknown number. Sleep well. Tomorrow, we hunt. It could only be from Victor. She deleted it and climbed into bed, not bothering to change out of her work clothes. Sleep came quickly, heavy and dreamless, the sleep of someone who'd pushed past exhaustion into a space beyond fear. When she woke 6 hours later to sunlight streaming through dirty windows, everything had changed. The news was reporting Victor Romano's death. Lena grabbed her phone with shaking hands and pulled up the headlines. Every major outlet was running the story. Mafia boss dies after apparent poisoning at charity gala. The details were sparse but consistent. Victor had seemed fine after the incident at the event, had gone home, felt ill overnight, suffered what appeared to be a delayed reaction to poison. Dead on arrival at New York Presbyterian. Lena's phone rang. Dimitri. It started, he said without preamble. The story's out. Police are already at the hotel questioning staff. They'll want to interview you again. What do I tell them? The truth, mostly. You saw Mr. Romano leave the event. He seemed fine. You went home. You woke up to the news. You're shocked and devastated. Can you do that? Yes? Good. Someone will pick you up in 2 hours. Press conference at 3. You'll need to look the part. Upset, scared, guilty for not doing more. I'm sending a stylist to help. A stylist? Image matters, Lena. You're about to become the most famous hotel maid in New York. We need you to look exactly right. Poor but dignified, traumatized but brave. Trust the process. The call ended. Lena stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. 24 hours ago, she'd been invisible. Now she was about to stand in front of cameras and lie to the entire city. The stylist arrived 90 minutes later, a woman named Gabriella with sharp eyes and an efficient manner. She took one look at Lena and got to work, selecting clothes from bags she'd brought, applying minimal makeup that somehow made Lena look younger and more vulnerable, arranging her hair in a simple style that suggested she'd tried to look presentable but was too distraught to care much. Perfect, Gabriella said, stepping back to assess her work. You look like exactly what you are, a good girl caught in a nightmare. The cameras will eat it up. A black car arrived at 2:30. Not Dimitri this time, but another security professional who introduced himself only as Marcus. He drove Lena to one police plaza where reporters already swarmed the steps, cameras and microphones creating a forest of mechanical eyes. Inside, Detective Morrison waited in an interview room. He looked older than he had the night before, lines of stress carved deep around his eyes. Ms. Hart, he said, thank you for coming. I know this must be difficult. Is it true? Lena asked, letting her voice shake. Is Mr. Romano really dead? I'm afraid so. Died around 4 this morning. The medical examiner is conducting an autopsy, but preliminary findings suggest cyanide poisoning, consistent with what we found in the champagne glass last night. But he seemed fine when he left. He was talking, walking. He seemed completely normal. Cyanide can have delayed effects depending on dosage and delivery method. Sometimes victims seem to recover, then deteriorate hours later. It's rare, but it happens. Morrison opened a file folder. I need you to walk me through everything again, every detail you remember from last night. So Lena told the story again, sticking as close to the truth as possible while carefully avoiding anything that would expose Victor's plan. She described overhearing Clara and Leon, described the red dot on the glass, described her panic and the punch, described Victor thanking her and letting her go home. And you haven't heard from Mr. Romano or his associates since last night? Morrison asked. No, Detective. I went home and went to sleep. Woke up to the news. He studied her face, looking for cracks in the performance. Ms. Hart, I'm going to be direct with you. Victor Romano was a dangerous man with dangerous enemies. If someone approached you, offered you money to help them, promised to protect you. No one offered me anything, Lena interrupted. I'm just a hotel maid who tried to do the right thing. That's all. Morrison sighed. Okay. You're free to go, but stay available. We'll likely need to speak with you again as the investigation continues. Of course, Detective. He escorted her to a press conference room where reporters filled every seat, cameras lined the walls, and the air crackled with predatory interest. The police commissioner stood at a podium, looking grave and official. We'll begin shortly, Morrison murmured. Just answer questions honestly. If anything makes you uncomfortable, you can defer to the commissioner. Lena took a seat at the table beside the commissioner, very aware of the cameras focused on her face. This was Victor's plan. Put her in the spotlight. Make her the sympathetic witness. Let Clara and Leon think they'd won. The commissioner spoke first, delivering a prepared statement about the tragedy, the ongoing investigation, the commitment to finding whoever was responsible. Then he opened the floor to questions. Ms. Hart, a reporter called out, can you describe what you saw last night? Lena leaned toward the microphone. I saw something that scared me. Someone near the champagne service area who didn't belong. I didn't know what to do, so I reacted. I tried to keep Mr. Romano from drinking that glass. Do you feel responsible for his death? If you'd done something different, could he have survived? The question was cruel, designed to extract maximum emotion. Lena felt tears, real tears, prick at her eyes. I don't know. I keep asking myself that. Maybe if I'd called security instead of if I'd done anything different. You tried to save him, another reporter interrupted. You're a hero. I'm not a hero, Lena said, her voice breaking. A hero would have saved him. I failed. The press conference continued for another 20 minutes. Lena answered questions, deflected others, and played her part perfectly. When it finally ended, she was escorted out through a side entrance where Marcus waited with the car. You did well, he said as they pulled into traffic. Very convincing. It wasn't all acting, Lena admitted. Part of me really does feel guilty. Don't. You saved his life once. What happens next isn't your fault. They drove to a safe house in Queens, a nondescript townhouse in a quiet neighborhood where Dimitri waited with Victor, who was very much alive. He looked different without his suit, jeans, a sweater, no pretense of power. Just a man who'd faked his own death and was watching the consequences unfold on multiple screens mounted to the wall. Excellent performance, Victor said as Lena entered. You had me almost convinced I was actually dead. How long until they move? Lena asked. Already started. Victor gestured to one screen showing security footage of his office building. Leon accessed my private office an hour ago. He's downloading files, making calls, positioning himself as my successor. Clara's meeting with her family's attorneys, probably crafting a story about how she's the grieving fiancé who should have rights to my estate. How long until we have enough evidence? 24 hours, maybe less. They're moving fast, which means they're making mistakes. Dimitri's team is documenting everything. By tomorrow night, we'll have enough to bury them. Another screen showed Clara leaving a restaurant with Leon. They looked like any other couple, attractive, well-dressed, comfortable with each other. But there was something in their body language, a tension that suggested they were barely holding it together. They think they won, Lena said quietly. They think they won, Victor agreed. Tomorrow, they learn otherwise. Lena watched the screens, watched Clara and Leon navigate their victory, and felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Justice was coming, and it would be absolute. The safe house became Lena's world for the next 18 hours. She watched the screens with Victor and Dimitri as Clara and Leon's carefully constructed plan unraveled in real time, every move they made digging their graves deeper. Sleep came in brief, restless intervals on a borrowed couch while Victor maintained his vigil, tracking his betrayers with the patience of a predator who knew the kill was inevitable. By midnight, Leon had made contact with 17 of Victor's key associates, positioning himself as the natural successor. By 3 a.m, Clara had filed preliminary paperwork claiming common-law marriage rights to Victor's estate. By dawn, they'd made their first catastrophic mistake. There, Victor said, freezing the security footage on one of the screens. Watch this. The image showed Leon entering a storage facility in Brooklyn, one of Victor's legitimate businesses used to warehouse imported goods. Leon carried a laptop and a small duffel bag. He spent 40 minutes inside, then emerged looking satisfied. What did he take? Lena asked, accepting the coffee Dmitri handed her. Nothing. He left something. Victor's smile was cold. That facility stores high-end electronics, computers, phones, tablets. Leon just planted evidence that would make it look like I was running a smuggling operation. When the FBI raids it, and they will, because Leon's going to tip them off, they'll find exactly what they need to seize my assets and shut down my legitimate operations. But if your assets are seized, Clara can't inherit them. Exactly. Which means Leon's working a different angle. He doesn't want my money. He wants my network. The contacts, the leverage, the power structure. Money can be rebuilt. Power is harder to replace. Victor rewound the footage. But here's what he doesn't know. That facility has been clean for 2 years. I moved all questionable operations out when I started legitimizing my business. So when the FBI raids it, they'll find the planted evidence, trace it back to Leon, and realize they've been played. Won't they arrest you anyway? They'll try, but my lawyers are better than their prosecutors, and I've been very careful to operate within legal boundaries for the past 2 years. The worst they can do is tie me up in court for a few months. Meanwhile, Leon's planted evidence becomes proof of his betrayal. Dmitri's phone buzzed. He checked it, then showed Victor the screen. Clara just withdrew $2 million in cash from her family's accounts, preparing to run. Not yet, Victor said. She's gathering resources, but she won't run until she's certain the legal claim will fail. She still thinks she has a chance. When do we move? Lena asked. Victor checked his watch. 6 hours. I've arranged a meeting with the FBI, the district attorney, and the police commissioner. We'll present everything at once. The poison attempt, Leon's planted evidence, Clara's fraudulent marriage claim. By sunset, they'll both be in custody. And then? And then you get to watch them realize they lost, as promised. The hours crawled past with agonizing slowness. Lena tried to rest, but couldn't silence her racing mind. She kept thinking about Clara's ice-blue eyes, Leon's perfect smile, the casual cruelty of people who'd been willing to murder for money and power. She thought about her mother in that expensive facility, about Daniel finally getting the education he deserved, about how quickly her life had transformed from invisible poverty to dangerous purpose. At 11 o'clock, Victor emerged from a back room wearing a suit again, armor for the battle ahead. He looked every inch the powerful man the world knew, except for the bruise on his jaw where Lena's fist had connected. He'd kept it deliberately, refusing makeup or cover-up. A reminder, he said when he caught Lena staring, of the moment someone cared enough to punch me in the face to save my life. Most people would hide that, Lena said. I'm not most people. Victor adjusted his tie. Ready? As I'll ever be. They drove to Federal Plaza in a convoy of 3 black SUVs, security protocols tight enough to protect a head of state. The FBI building loomed above them, all concrete and glass and institutional authority. Lena had never been inside a federal building before. The weight of it, the power concentrated in these walls, pressed against her like physical force. Special Agent Sarah Chen met them in the lobby. She was 40, sharp-eyed, with the kind of face that had seen too many lies to believe easy truths. Her gaze swept over Victor with obvious distaste, then landed on Lena with curiosity. "Mr. Romano," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "You're looking well for a dead man." "Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated," Victor replied smoothly. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, Agent Chen. I believe we have information that will interest you." "We'll see. Conference room 3. Your security stays in the lobby." Dmitri started to protest, but Victor raised a hand. "It's fine. Agent Chen has no reason to harm me. And if she did, well, I'm already dead, aren't I?" They followed Agent Chen through security checkpoints and sterile corridors to a conference room where the district attorney and the police commissioner already waited. Both men looked uncomfortable. Victor Romano's presence in an FBI building was the kind of thing that could end careers or start them, depending on how the next hour unfolded. "Gentlemen," Victor said, taking a seat at the head of the table like he owned the room. Lena sat beside him, very aware of the eyes tracking her every movement. Thank you for coming. I'm going to save us all time by being direct. I faked my death to expose a murder conspiracy. The evidence is comprehensive, documented, and ready for immediate prosecution. You faked your death, District Attorney Rodriguez repeated, his voice flat. Do you have any idea how many laws you've broken? How many resources you've wasted with this stunt? I'm aware. I'm also aware that without this stunt, you'd have no case against two people who attempted to murder me and would have succeeded if not for Ms. Hart's intervention. Victor pulled out a tablet and began swiping through files. Shall we begin? For the next 90 minutes, Victor laid out the entire conspiracy. The poison analysis, the surveillance footage of Clara and Leon's secret meetings, Leon's planted evidence at the warehouse, financial records showing Clara's family bankruptcy, and the timing of their engagement, recorded phone calls between Leon and his FBI handler, calls that proved Leon had been feeding selective information while hiding his own criminal activities. Agent Chen's expression grew darker with each revelation. Leon Mercer was one of our confidential informants. If he's been playing us, he's been playing everyone, Victor interrupted. You wanted information on my organization. He gave you enough truth to seem credible while hiding his real agenda, stealing my business for himself and Clara. You were tools, just like I was supposed to be a victim. Rodriguez leaned forward. Even if everything you're saying is true, and that's a significant if, you still faked your death. You deceived law enforcement. You manipulated a criminal investigation. I created the opportunity for you to catch two attempted murderers who would have disappeared if I'd handled this my usual way. Victor's voice was cold. You can charge me with obstruction and watch them walk on technicalities, or you can accept my cooperation and close a case that makes you all look competent. Your choice. The room fell silent. Lena watched the three officials exchange glances, conducting a wordless negotiation about power and politics and the uncomfortable reality that sometimes justice required compromising with criminals. What do you want? Agent Chen asked finally. Immunity for Ms. Hart, complete and unconditional. She was a civilian who tried to save a life. She doesn't deserve to be punished because I involved her in my plan. And for yourself? Nothing. Charge me with whatever you need to charge me with, as long as Clara Whitmore and Leon Mercer face the full weight of the law. Attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, everything they've done. Commissioner Walsh spoke for the first time. Why? You could have killed them quietly. Instead, you're handing them to us, potentially exposing yourself to prosecution. That's not how men in your position usually operate. Victor was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. My father told me not to be like him. I didn't listen. Built an empire the same way he did, through fear and violence. But maybe it's not too late to do one thing differently. Maybe letting the system work, trusting justice instead of revenge. Maybe that counts for something. Or maybe, Agent Chen said, you're just getting old and sentimental. Maybe, Victor agreed. Does it matter? You're getting two criminals and comprehensive evidence. I'm offering full cooperation. The only question is whether your pride matters more than closing the case. Another silence. Then Rodriguez nodded slowly. We'll need everything. All the evidence, all the recordings, full statements from both you and Ms. Hart. And we'll need you to testify when this goes to trial. Done. And you'll surrender your passport. House arrest pending arraignment on obstruction charges. Acceptable? Agent Chen stood. Give us 2 hours to review the evidence and coordinate with the arrest teams. If everything checks out the way you claim, we'll move on Whitmore and Mercer simultaneously. She looked at Lena. Ms. Hart, I'll need your statement as well. Everything that happened, from the beginning. Lena spent the next hour in an interview room, telling the story yet again to a recording device and 2 federal agents who took notes and asked pointed questions. She stuck to the truth now. No more performance, no more careful omissions. The relief of honesty was almost physical, like setting down a weight she'd been carrying too long. When she finished, one of the agents, a young woman who'd introduced herself as Agent Martinez, smiled slightly. For what it's worth, Ms. Hart, what you did took guts. Not many people would have the courage to punch a Mafia boss, even to save his life. I didn't feel courageous, Lena admitted. I felt terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. Martinez closed her notebook. You're free to go. We'll contact you if we need anything else. Lena found Victor in the lobby with Dmitri, both men watching their phones with focused intensity. Victor looked up as she approached. They're moving, he said quietly. Arrest teams are heading to Claire's apartment in Leon's office right now. Do you want to watch? Yes. Victor pulled up a live feed on his tablet. Someone in the FBI had agreed to stream the arrests, probably as a courtesy or maybe as insurance. The screen split to show two locations simultaneously. Claire's apartment was elegant, expensive, exactly what Lena would have expected. The arrest team knocked, announced themselves, then entered with practiced efficiency. Clara appeared in frame wearing a silk robe, her blonde hair perfect even at 2 in the afternoon. Her expression cycled through confusion to outrage to fear as the lead agent read her rights. This is absurd, Clara's voice came through the tablet's speaker. I'm the victim here. My fiancé was murdered and you're arresting me? Clara Whitmore, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and wire fraud. You have the right to remain silent. I want my lawyer. I want him now. This is harassment. This is... The feed cut as they cuffed her and led her out. Lena watched Clara's perfect composure crack, watched the Ice Queen mask shatter into something raw and desperate, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The second feed showed Leon's office, a sleek space in a midtown high-rise with views of Central Park. Leon was on the phone when the agents entered, his voice confident as he discussed some business deal. He looked up, saw the badges, and his face went absolutely white. I need to call you back, he said into the phone, his voice suddenly hollow. The lead agent approached. Leon Mercer, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, planting false evidence, and obstruction of justice. Hands behind your back, please. You don't understand, Leon said, stumbling backward. I've been working with you. I'm a confidential informant. Call Agent Chen. She'll explain. Agent Chen is the one who ordered your arrest, Mr. Mercer. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. Leon's composure disintegrated. He tried to run, made it 3 steps before 2 agents tackled him to the expensive carpet. His shouts echoed through the feed as they restrained him, read his rights, hauled him to his feet. This is wrong. You're making a mistake. Romano's the criminal, not me. I was trying to bring him down. I was helping you. By poisoning him at a charity gala? The agent's voice was disgusted. Save it for your lawyer, Mercer. The feeds ended. Victor closed the tablet and looked at Lena. How do you feel? He asked. Lena searched for the right words. Like I can breathe for the first time in days. Like maybe the world isn't completely broken. Like... She stopped, emotion catching in her throat. Like justice actually exists. Sometimes, Victor said quietly. Not always. Not often enough. But sometimes. They left the FBI building as the sun began its descent toward the Jersey horizon, painting Manhattan in shades of gold and amber. Dmitri drove them back to the safe house, where Lena's belongings waited in a bag someone had packed from her apartment. What happens now? Lena asked. Now Clara and Leon are arraigned, Victor said. They'll try to make bail, but the charges are serious enough that a judge will likely deny it. Then comes the trial, probably 6 to 8 months out. They'll try to cut deals, blame each other, claim diminished capacity or coercion. It won't work. The evidence is too strong. And you? House arrest for a few months while my lawyers argue that I was justified in faking my death given the circumstances. Probably some fines, maybe probation. Nothing I can't handle. He smiled slightly. I've had worse. What about me? Victor reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. $500,000 as promised, plus a letter of recommendation from the Grandeur Hotel's management. Apparently they're very impressed with your initiative and quick thinking. You can work anywhere you want now, or not work at all for a while if you prefer. Lena took the envelope with trembling hands. $500,000. More money than she'd ever imagined possessing. Enough to change everything. Thank you, she whispered. I should be thanking you. You saved my life, Lena. Twice. Once from the poison. Once from becoming the man who'd kill Clara and Leon in cold blood. That's worth more than money. The safe house came into view. Dmitri pulled into the driveway and cut the engine, but made no move to get out. The silence stretched between them, weighted with things unsaid. "I need to check on my family," Lena said finally. "My mother, my brother, I need to see them." "Of course. Dmitri will drive you to the facility." Victor hesitated, then continued. "There's something else. The doctors at Sloan Kettering reviewed your mother's case. There's an experimental treatment, immunotherapy combined with targeted radiation. It's aggressive, but the trial results are promising. If she qualifies, she has a real chance." Lena's vision blurred with sudden tears. "How much of a chance?" 40% survival rate at 5 years. Better than the 5% she has now. 40%. Not a guarantee. Not even close. But better than the death sentence they'd been living with for 2 years. "When can she start?" "As soon as she's stable enough for transfer. The team is already coordinating with the facility." Victor's voice softened. "I can't promise she'll survive, Lena, but I can promise she'll have the best care available. That's all anyone can do. It's more than we had yesterday. It's more than I ever thought possible." Lena wiped her eyes. "Thank you, Victor, for everything." He smiled, a real smile this time, not the calculated expression he showed the world. "Thank you, Lena Hart, for reminding me that some people still do the right thing even when it costs them everything." Dmitri drove her to the facility in Westchester, a sprawling campus that looked more like a resort than a medical center. Lena found her mother in a private suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking gardens that seemed impossibly green. Daniel sat beside the bed, his face lighting up when Lena entered. "Mija," her mother breathed, reaching for her hand. "You're okay. I was so worried." "I'm fine, Mama. Better than fine." Lena hugged Daniel, then sat on the edge of the bed. "I have so much to tell you." She explained everything, leaving out the most dangerous parts, focusing on the heroism and the reward. Her mother listened with wide eyes, occasionally touching Lena's face as if to confirm she was real. $500,000, her mother whispered. "Lena, that's a miracle. And there's a treatment, a real treatment that might work. The doctors want to start as soon as you're strong enough. But the cost is covered. All of it. Medicine, doctors, everything. You just have to fight, Mama. You have to keep fighting." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "I've been fighting for so long. I'm so tired, baby." "I know, but now you have a reason to win. Daniel needs you. I need you. And you have the best doctors in the country ready to help. So you fight, okay? You fight like you taught me to fight. Like you fought for that man's life." "Like I fought for that man's life," Lena agreed. Daniel's text-to-speech app chimed. "Sister is hero. Mama must be hero too." Her mother laughed through tears and pulled Daniel into the embrace. Okay, I'll fight. For both of you." Lena stayed with them through dinner, real food from the facility's kitchen, not the hospital slop her mother had been choking down for months. They ate together, talked about Daniel's new school, made plans for a future that suddenly seemed possible again. As night fell and her mother drifted toward sleep, Lena kissed her forehead and whispered, "I love you, Mama, so much. I love you too, Mija, my brave, beautiful girl." Dmitri drove Lena back to the city in comfortable silence, but instead of dropping her at her apartment, he took her to the Tribeca penthouse, where she'd first made her deal with Victor. "Boss wants to see you," Dmitri explained. "Said it's important." The penthouse looked different at night, the city lights transforming the windows into a canvas of gold and white against black velvet. Victor stood by those windows again, this time without the whiskey, without the armor of his suit. Just a man in jeans and a sweater, staring at the city he'd built his empire upon. "Thank you for coming," he said as Lena entered. "I wasn't sure you would." "Why wouldn't I?" "Because you're free now. Free of obligation, free of danger, free to walk away and never look back. Most people would." "I'm not most people," Lena said, echoing his earlier words. Victor smiled. "No, you're not." He gestured to the sofa. "Sit, please. I have a proposition." Lena sat, curiosity overriding caution. I meant what I said about legitimizing my business, Victor began. The past 2 years, I've been transitioning from criminal enterprises to legal operations. Real estate, import-export, venture capital. It's slower, less profitable, but also less likely to end with me in prison or dead in an alley. That's smart. It's necessary, but it's also lonely. I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who wanted something from me. Money, power, protection. People who'd betray me the moment the price was right. Claire and Leon proved that. He paused, choosing his words carefully. But you didn't want anything. You saved my life because it was the right thing to do. You helped me expose them because you believed in justice. You asked for money only to save your family, not for yourself. Where's this going, Victor? I'm offering you a job, personal assistant to start. Someone who can help me navigate this new world I'm trying to build. Someone I can trust because you've already proven you're not for sale. He named a salary that made Lena's head spin. You'd have full benefits, flexible hours to care for your family, and the satisfaction of helping transform a criminal empire into something legitimate. Lena stared at him. You want to hire me? I'm a hotel maid. I don't have any experience with business or... You have something more valuable than experience. You have integrity. You have courage. You have the ability to see what needs to be done and the spine to do it, even when it's terrifying. Victor leaned forward. I can teach you business. I can't teach you character. You already have that. This is insane. Probably, but I've built my life on calculated risks. You're the best risk I've taken in years. He stood and extended his hand. Think about it. You don't have to decide tonight. Take a week. Take a month. But know the offer stands. Lena looked at his hand, scarred, strong, belonging to a man who'd killed and corrupted but was somehow trying to be better. Then she thought about her tiny apartment in the Bronx, her mother fighting for her life, Daniel finally thriving, and the strange, impossible path her life had taken in the past 72 hours. She took Victor's hand. I'll think about it. But Victor, if I say yes, it can't be like this. You giving orders and me following. I'm not your employee in that way. I'm your partner, or I'm nothing. Something shifted in his expression, surprise giving way to what might have been hope. Partners then, if you decide to say yes. If I decide to say yes... They shook, and Lena felt the world tilt on its axis one more time. 3 months later, Lena stood in a courtroom wearing a suit that actually fit, watching Clara Whitmore and Leon Mercer receive their sentences. Clara got 20 years for conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. Leon got 25 for the same charges plus obstruction of justice and planting false evidence. Both looked smaller somehow, diminished by orange jumpsuits and the weight of consequences they'd never believed would touch them. When the judge's gavel fell, Lena felt the last piece of tension she'd been carrying finally release. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but Dmitri cleared a path through the chaos. Victor waited by the car, wearing an ankle monitor but otherwise free, pending the resolution of his obstruction charges that would likely result in probation and community service, according to his lawyers. Justice, Victor said as Lena approached. Just like I promised. Just like you promised, Lena agreed. They drove to the facility in Westchester, where Lena's mother was 3 weeks into her experimental treatment. The cancer hadn't disappeared, but it had stopped growing. The doctors called it encouraging. Lena called it a miracle. Daniel was in his new school, thriving in ways Lena had never dared imagine. He had friends now, teachers who understood him, a future that looked bright instead of dim. And Lena had accepted Victor's offer 2 weeks ago, starting her new position as his partner in legitimizing his empire. It was hard work, navigating the gray spaces between criminal and legal, learning to trust her instincts in boardrooms instead of hotel ballrooms. But it was also exhilarating, challenging, purposeful, in ways her old life had never been. I have something for you, Victor said as they walked through the facility's gardens. He pulled out a small box and handed it to her. Inside was a key. Simple, brass, unmarked. What's this? The penthouse. I bought it outright. No mortgage. It's yours. Lena's breath caught. Victor, I can't accept... Yes, you can. You've earned it 10 times over. Besides, I need you close. Partners should be accessible, and your Bronx apartment is too far from the office. His smile was teasing, but his eyes were serious. Plus, Daniel will love the view, and your mother will need somewhere comfortable to recover when she's released. When she's released, Lena repeated, holding on to the hope in those words. Not if. When, Victor confirmed. The doctors are optimistic, cautiously optimistic, but still. They sat on a bench overlooking the gardens, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. A year ago, Lena had been invisible, powerless, grinding through days that all looked the same. Now she owned a penthouse, worked as a partner to one of New York's most powerful men, and had given her family a chance at a real future. Do you ever regret it? Victor asked suddenly. Punching me that night, setting all of this in motion. Lena thought about fear and courage, about the split-second decision that had changed everything. No. Do you regret letting me? Not for a second. He looked at her, and Lena saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Vulnerability, hope, the tentative beginning of something that might become real. You know what's funny? I was engaged to Clara for 6 months and never once felt what I feel when you walk into a room. Lena's heart stuttered. Victor, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. You've been through hell because of me. The last thing you need is romantic pressure from your business partner. I just wanted you to know that somewhere in the middle of this chaos, I started caring about you, really caring. Not because you saved my life, but because of who you are. Who am I? Lena asked softly. Someone real, someone brave, someone who sees the world clearly and still chooses hope over cynicism. He smiled. Someone who punches mafia bosses to save their lives. Lena laughed, and the sound felt like freedom. I only punch mafia bosses I care about. Do you care about me? She thought about the question seriously, examining her feelings without the pressure of fear or obligation. Victor was complicated. Part criminal, part crusader, part wounded man trying to become someone his father would be proud of. He was dangerous and damaged, and nothing like the safe, simple love stories she'd imagined as a girl. But he was also honest in ways that mattered, generous without needing praise, capable of change even when change was hard. Yes, Lena said finally, I care about you. I don't know what that means yet, or where it goes, but yes. Victor's smile transformed his face, making him look younger, less burdened. That's enough. That's more than enough. They sat together as the sun set, two people who'd found each other in violence and chaos, and somehow stumbled towards something that looked like hope. Lena leaned her head against Victor's shoulder, and he wrapped an arm around her, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she'd come home. 6 months later, Victor proposed. They were on the penthouse rooftop, a space Lena had transformed into a garden with Daniel's help. The city sprawled below them, 8 million lives moving through their own stories of struggle and survival and occasional triumph. I know it's fast, Victor said, kneeling on the rooftop tiles with a ring that caught the moonlight. I know we've only been together officially for 3 months, but I've spent my whole life taking calculated risks, and you're the best risk I've ever taken. So I'm asking, will you marry me? Lena looked at the ring, simple, elegant, nothing like the ostentatious rock Clara had worn. She looked at Victor, who'd transformed from the mafia boss she'd punched into the man she'd chosen to build a life with. She looked at the city that had tried to crush her and somehow made her stronger instead. Yes, she said, on one condition. Name it. We get married here, on this rooftop. Small ceremony, just family and the people who matter. No society gala, no $1,000 plates, no pretense. Victor laughed and slipped the ring onto her finger. Done. Anything you want. They were married 3 months later, on a perfect October evening with the city lights as their witness. Lena's mother was there, cancer in remission and growing stronger every day. Daniel was there, wearing a suit he'd picked out himself and beaming with pride. Dmitri served as best man, looking uncomfortable in formal wear, but genuinely happy. The ceremony was short, the vows simple. Lena promised to love Victor despite his complicated past. Victor promised to build a future worthy of Lena's courage. They kissed as the sun set over Manhattan, and the small gathering of people they trusted applauded. At the reception, catered dinner on the rooftop, nothing fancy, Daniel's text-to-speech app chimed repeatedly as he gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. He talked about his sister who'd always protected him, who'd punched a powerful man to save a life, who'd taken an impossible situation and somehow made it beautiful. Sister was invisible, Daniel's app concluded, but sister was never small. Sister was always hero. Now everyone sees what I always saw. Lena hugged her brother and cried happy tears into his shoulder, while her mother dabbed at her eyes, and Victor watched his new family with an expression of pure contentment. Later, when the guests had gone home and the caterers had cleaned up, Lena and Victor stood at the rooftop's edge, looking out at the city that had tried to destroy them and somehow brought them together instead. "No regrets?" Victor asked, pulling her close. "Not one," Lena said. "You?" "Only that I didn't meet you sooner. Think of all the time we wasted. We found each other when we were supposed to, not a moment sooner, not a moment later." Lena looked up at him, at the man who'd been a stranger 3 years ago and was now her husband. "Besides, I needed time to perfect my right hook. Couldn't punch a mafia boss properly without practice." Victor laughed, the sound echoing across the rooftop. "Promise me something. Anything. If I ever need saving again, you'll be there to punch me back to my senses." "Always," Lena promised. "That's what partners do." They kissed under the stars, two people who'd started as invisible Maid and feared Mafia boss, and somehow became something more. Something real. Something that looked like love and felt like hope, and proved that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was punch fate in the face and demand a better ending. The invisible girl was invisible no more, and the mafia boss who'd ruled through fear had finally learned to live through love. Together, they'd built something worth fighting for, something worth saving, something worth everything. And it all started with a punch that stopped death and sparked life instead.